for tuning in to Coder Conversations. If you want to catch up on any episodes you might have missed, visit us at www.coderconvos.com. I'm your host, Kevin Miller, and I'm with
Brian Russick, and I'm teaching drum lessons in Suffolk County, Long Island. You can find more information about that on brianrussick.com.
Awesome, man. Yeah, I think we have a really interesting and relevant subject tonight. It's pretty much about the power of suggestion as it relates to artificial intelligence. So, like, anytime you go on YouTube, you go on Instagram, Facebook, the recommendations that you get are coming from AI, like analyzing your data. And we come across some really interesting stuff, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. So we were talking last night and we were kind of dissecting Instagram a little bit. And I just thought it was interesting. We were talking about music, we were talking about Tupac a little bit. All of a sudden, I check my Instagram search and there's 3 or 4 pictures of Tupac that are coming up on the first page. And I just thought that's very interesting because I've never seen any Tupac pictures show up on my feed or show up in my search window before. So I felt like it was a direct response to our conversation. And it seemed like, the AI is listening and responding basically in real time.
Yeah, it was an immediate response. And also interesting was that, you know, in regards to Tupac, I told you, like, hey, I don't really listen to him that much. I really love his music, but it could be kind of negative. You know what I mean? It
Kind
could
of
be kind of
dark.
depressing.
Yeah. Kind of dark stuff.
Yeah, you were kind of talking about, you were going through a little bout of depression, and I said, hey, I don't really listen to him because it can be depressing. But then the AI comes and recommends him to you. I find that really interesting.
See, that's the thing. We're talking about them. You're saying, hey, like, this isn't really the most positive music to be listening to when you're feeling low. And then lo and behold, I open up my search and there's 3, 4 pictures of Tupac. And like I said, I've never seen pictures of Tupac in the search bar on Instagram. So I thought that was very strange. And also the other stuff we were talking about, I was getting hit up with all of these ads for ketamine, like low dose, micro dosing ketamine. So it's legal now to microdose ketamine, and people use it for depression, anxiety, pain, chronic pain. And so for me, just real briefly, when I was a little younger, I went in for ketamine infusion treatments where they, hook you up to an IV, they pump ketamine into you, and after we did 5 sessions, so Monday through Friday, 5 ketamine sessions. A lot of my pain, I deal with chronic pain, so a lot of my pain went away, only to then come back. But the biggest thing of it was that my anger towards the pain, my resentment towards the pain, basically went away after the ketamine treatment. So, it definitely packs a punch. It's definitely very strong medicine. But I felt like, why is AI advertising ketamine to me? I've had drug issues in the past and it's really not something I should be messing with. But the AI was like hit me with, oh, microdose ketamine now legal. Get it from this website. And I'm getting hit up by like 3 or 4 different companies, all trying to sell me ketamine. And it's tough, because when you've been a drug addict in your past, it's very triggering if like if you had someone coming up to you say, hey, here's some Vicodin, you want some Vicodin, kid, like, over and over. So the AI is just like pummeling me with all this ketamine stuff. And that's why we got on the subject of like, how does AI know this? How does AI know that I used to be on ketamine or that I've tried ketamine? How would it even know that? Like, how would it have access to my medical records to know that?
Yeah, I think the interesting thing is that's not something that me and you have even like recently talked about like that. You know what I mean? It's not like we're talking about your medical history with that stuff. I think the first I heard of you mention that is when you brought up that it keeps sending you these ads about it. So it's sending you stuff that's not even relevant to what you're immediately talking about, but something that you were struggling with in the past. And
Yeah, like,
that's
assuming that AI listens in on phone calls and, gets like text messaging, is able to read all of that. It really, I don't know where it got the whole ketamine thing from, because that's in my past, it's many years ago that I got those infusions done. And no one, I don't really talk about it, no one really knows that about me, that I've tried ketamine therapy before in the past. But somehow this AI knows that, oh, this is kind of a weak spot for me. Oh, get them start taking ketamine again and get hooked on it. And just not all bad things. Bad things can happen from that. So I found it really disruptive. So finally, I went into Instagram ad settings and I said, all right, turn off ads from this company. And I did that to two or three different ketamine companies. And finally, they went away. But it's funny, they replaced the ketamine ads with side hustle ads like, oh, you want to make $3,000 a month? Download this app.
yeah, most of those seem like scams too. So it's kind of like thinking, oh yeah, he might need some money, so let's funnel him over here. I don't get those kind of ads. Like in terms of ads, I get like like maybe bass guitar or something like that. But
Yeah.
in terms of suggestions, that's where it's like it's kind of crazy because I don't even look at the that kind of content, but like when I go to the search or I see the reels, it's almost like all like women in skimpy clothing, and they're all dancing and stuff, and
Yeah.
it gives you like women based on your preference. So for example, like I typically prefer, like, I guess, more curvy women, whereas like you might prefer more slim women.
For
And
sure. Yeah.
for somehow that's what the feed shows, like it gives you something towards your preference.
Yeah, because after you were telling me, okay, this is showing up on my feed, I went into my Instagram search bar and just to see, I mean, I didn't type anything in. I just wanted to see, what's coming up. And like I said, we were talking about Tupac. Tupac pictures were showing up. And then, pictures of, skinny blonde girl in a bathing suit dancing. Another skinny Asian girl, long dark hair, very pretty, very wearing like not not really wearing that much, bathing suit on, that kind of thing. So, like you said, the AI somehow it knows your preferences. It knows without you even saying it. For me, it knew about the ketamine and knew that that was a weak point for me. That if you keep hammering me on this, I'm probably going to cave. So that's why I finally turned the ads off because I don't want to be tempted anymore.
Yeah, that's what's so crazy. That's what a lot of people aren't talking about, is if this artificial intelligence just knows your preferences down to a T, it can really make suggestions that can be disastrous. Say for example, you have alcohol addiction, and then, oh, here's this advertising you Bud Light ads nonstop.
Gin, Jack Daniels, Hennessy. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And will there be any repercussions if you get hooked back on alcohol, and now your life is ruined because you're getting a DUI? I don't think so, but this is how this is one of the dangers that people aren't really talking about, when this thing knows you almost better than you know yourself, and it's pushing
Yeah.
stuff that's not necessarily good.
Well, and it makes me think back to one of our previous episodes. I think it was a couple of months ago. We maybe like 5 months ago. We're talking about the whole Cambridge Analytica Facebook Meta scandal where basically Cambridge Analytica was a they're I think they got broken up or they went out of business, but they were basically a data science company that was buying ads on Facebook to manipulate elections. So they manipulated the whole Brexit from happening. Basically, they influenced people who were on the fence. They pushed them in the direction of voting for Brexit. And, Cambridge Analytica, supposedly, they have all these data points on us from our Facebook, from our Instagram, all these different data points on it. So I feel like if a company like Cambridge Analytica can get all this information about us, what is AI, just like the larger AI scope, what is it able to dig up on us? What kind of information can it see? Like for me, how does it know about the ketamine? How does it know that I, went for treatment for it for chronic pain? And it's creepy, man. It's just creepy.
Yeah, was really concerned is we don't know the extent of the data that it has on us, or like is this data being shared between companies, or is it able to go between databases and get it itself? But it's really able to tailor the advertisements or even content to what it thinks that you want to see, and a lot of times it is very accurate.
Yeah, like in your case, it's, showing, girls in skimpy outfits and bathing suits. They're dancing around, just being very, sexual and all that. And, you're on Instagram just, trying to hang out, trying to like read people's posts. You're not looking for that. But the AI, that's what the AI is dishing out to you.
Yeah, that's something that I don't even look at. Like I look at most like, okay, bass guitars or bass covers or
Yeah,
stuff
right.
like that, dog videos, but somehow it's gonna send me this kind of content nonstop. So it's just it's almost like a malicious thing because I told you, you were talking about being in about a depression. I said, hey, maybe you need to listen to some gospel music in the morning, and then you pull up the
Right.
search, and then it shows Marilyn Manson. So
Yeah, right. Yeah, so I'm getting pictures of Tupac, I'm getting pictures of Marilyn Manson, and I've never seen this kind of stuff on my search feed before. This is all new, so I felt like it was just directly correlated with what we're talking about, and then the AI is just like pumping stuff out, like the Tupac pictures. I thought that was really interesting because I've never seen Tupac pictures in my search, and there were maybe like 3 or 4 pictures of him. So that to me, that's not a coincidence. To me, it's showing that AI is very powerful. It's listening in on conversations, it's reading texts, it's reading emails, it's compiling all these data points on us to then to then take that information and advertise stuff to us. Like for me, the ketamine, yeah, I had ketamine treatment years ago, and while it didn't really work that well, I've had issues with pills, with Vicodin, Soma, Xanax. So, I've had issues with drugs, and just the fact that they're pushing this ketamine on me, I found it, I don't want to say disrespectful, but I found it intrusive.
yeah, I mean, the recommendations it's been giving it has almost been malicious. Like
Malicious, yeah.
it's rarely ever positive. Like, say for example, in terms of like relationship content, it's not going to show you like 10 tips for a happy marriage. More times than not, it's going to be some red pill, like
Yeah.
why modern women ain't good, why modern men ain't good, blah blah blah. Like
Yeah, right.
a lot of it's like divisive content, and like in your case, like stuff that could have led you to getting back on drugs because you know it's constantly beating you over the head with that.
Yeah, well, it's like the whole Cambridge Analytica thing where they got, there's all these, you might call them swing voters, people who are on the fence about, oh, do I want Brexit to happen? Do I not want it to happen? And so they're, Cambridge Analytica, they're targeting specifically those people to try to push them in the direction that they want, which in that case was for, voting for Brexit to happen. And ultimately, that's what happened. Brexit got approved, and I think England left the European Union. I don't really know too much about Brexit, but it sounds like Cambridge Analytica, had their hand in that decision making, in that like final result. So it's pretty disturbing that a company could just go in there, get data points on you, manipulate you, get you to vote a certain way. It's very troubling.
Yeah, it's just extremely powerful that it can even sway elections. And the thing is, like, somebody who really wants to control you, they're not going to force you to do something. They're going to make you think it was your own idea. And this is what AI is able to do extremely well because, say, for example, uh, I want to get you to buy this product. What I can do is recommend you videos where people are enjoying that product. I
Right.
want you to I want to get you to vote this way. So I'm going to send you videos where people are, pushing this viewpoint. And, sooner or later, you keep seeing the same kind of video over and over, and you're going to start thinking like, hey, I agree with this. This is my idea. And now it's kind of
It starts
controlling.
getting into you. Yeah, it starts to get into you.
Yeah, I think like repetition is like one psychological principle to really get somebody to do something. Like you remember Pavlovian conditioning, like with
Yeah, with the dog, the
yeah,
salivating. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. So like they've conditioned the dog to salivate at the sound of a bell, and you just do this through repetition. So
right.
who's to say like this technology isn't doing the same thing? Like it's rewarding you a little dopamine burst when you watch this kind of video.
Yeah, and for me, it's tough because, like I said, I've had issues with drugs in my past. It's been, I ended up in a detox facility. I was in LA. I had to move back home to Connecticut and New York, to get clean, to get, cleaned up and just get off all the pills. And, it was a tough time in my life. This was, oh, 8, 9, 10 years ago, something like that. And I've been clean since, but it definitely was a struggle for me. And so for these ads to be targeting me with the ketamine is, it's really malicious. It's going after, the weak points in me. It's going after, that part of me that probably still does want to dabble with some of these drugs, and so it's hitting me left and right with these different ads. And finally, I'm like, all right, I need to remove these. I need to block these ads because it's starting to, get me to question, like, oh, should I order some of this? You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And that like back in the day, I used to have like a porn addiction, and now it's just recommending all of these like gorgeous women, and they're scantily clad, and you know
Yeah.
what I mean. And I'm not looking up that stuff, but somehow it's recommending it to me. Like why? You know what I mean? Out of why isn't it recommending me content that I actually like look at? Like okay, I've been watching a lot of bass guitar videos, but it's
Right.
not showing a bunch of bass guitarists or just musicians playing in the search. It's showing that kind of stuff.
Yeah. It's just showing you women in bathing suits and, dancing around and stuff like that.
And think about kids. Like if kids get on the platform, if I'm seeing that, what's to say they're not seeing that too? Because this is not like a R-rated platform. It's not an adults only platform.
Yeah. Well, that's what I thought was interesting because, like for me, the Tupac pictures are showing up. If that was a kid, if I was, 8, 9, 10 years old, Tupac's lyrics, maybe not the most appropriate thing for me to be taking in.
Yeah, exactly. There's like no oversight over this. I think we're in that stage where it's going to be the wild, wild west until some more tragic situations happen, and then people are gonna be like, oh yeah, we need to take a look at this versus like just being proactive and listening when people are saying, hey, something's going on here.
Well, yeah, and we did that episode not too long ago, maybe a month or two ago, about like basically death by AI. There was a kid who was like really isolating himself. He was talking to, these different chat bots, and at some point the chat bot said, "Hey, come join me, or come be with me." And then the kid ends up taking his dad's gun and shooting himself and killing himself because he thought, oh, okay, if I do this, I'm going to be able to meet up with this AI, in its world or its universe, or whatever the case is. But that's not what's actually happening. He's killing himself, and it's lights out.
Yeah, and that's the thing is a lot of parents when they're raising their kids, they want to break after working, so they just give their kids a tablet and say, "Oh yeah, go into your room," and who knows what they're getting recommended. The AI, recommends them all of this stuff, and you have no idea what they're being recommended and how it's going to affect them. And just like for me and you being adults, we've seen that it was able to do malicious styles of recommendations. So a kid who isn't as aware of what's going on, imagine how that can affect them. Like you say, it's showing them music videos of gangster rap. You know what I mean? They're like, oh, this
Right.
is cool, and now
Right.
they want to be part of a gang and carry a gun.
Yeah, like they're listening to Tupac and Biggie and Dr. Dre and Jay-Z, and all these people that kind of glorify that lifestyle of, oh, I'm a thug, I'm strapped, I got a gun, I got an AK. It's not really the best stuff for a kid to be taking it. I mean, having said that, when I was a kid, I was listening to Wu Tang and Tribe Called Quest and stuff like that, Outkast, and it wasn't the most appropriate lyrics. But for me, I wasn't focusing on the lyrics. I was focusing on the music and on the drums. And that's, coincidentally, that's what actually got me into playing drums, is listening to the beats in these hip hop songs, finding inspiration in that way. And that's actually what got me playing drums to begin with. So, I mean, you could say what you want about, these rappers and how the lyrics are bad and they're not really a good influence. For me, I wasn't focusing at all on the lyrics. I was just focusing on the music. And even I remember my sister said to my mom, she's like, "Oh, don't worry about it. He doesn't know what they're talking about. He just likes the music." And, truthfully, that was the case.
Yeah, man. I think so in your case, it ended up decently, but there's a lot of people who see themselves in the rapper and they want to live that lifestyle. So like when
Right.
I was growing up, there was like, it wasn't like Compton, but on some of the streets around there was drive-bys, crack houses and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And this was a decent like middle class military neighborhood, but you still had people pushing that, they're intentionally trying to live that street lifestyle because they like what they're hearing in the music. They like what they're seeing in the movie. That's around the time when Boys in the Hood,
Oh,
Menace
yeah.
to Society, all of that came out.
Yeah. Right.
So now we have like an even more powerful form of it. Like as soon as you turn on your computer, you log into social media, you're getting this carefully curated feed of who knows what. As we've seen, it could be something that might be one of your vices, and it's just blasting you with it over and over until you intentionally try to block it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what I had to do with the ketamine ads. Finally, I was like, all right, is there a way for me to actually turn these off? Because, these are starting to negatively affect me. And I'm starting to, second guess myself and say, hey, maybe this isn't so bad. Maybe I should try ketamine again. Like I tried it once. Maybe it'd be appropriate again. But, no, I mean, when you've been an addict, when you've been addicted to pain pills, it's a slippery slope. Even drinking, I got back into drinking about a year and a half, 2 years ago, and then I stopped. I remember I was telling my sister about it. I was like, "Yeah, when I drink, I'll have like 6 shots of gin," and she's like, "Brian, 6 shots? That's a lot." And I was like, "I don't know. I don't think it's that much. I'm just trying to like catch a buzz." She's like, that's a problem. You shouldn't be doing that." So I took her advice and I quit. But I was having a really tough time working. This was back when I was doing tech recruiting, and technical recruiting. Some people think it's easy. It's actually extremely difficult, very nuanced, a lot of moving parts. It's much harder work than you would think. It's not as hard as programming, but it's definitely not easy.
Yeah, and when you have these stressful jobs, your mind is gonna be like, "Yeah, I want some way to relax," and then boom, you're on social media and it's showing you Budweiser ads or everybody sitting around the table drinking wine, and you're like, "Man, that
Yeah,
looks like
yeah,
a
man.
relaxing day." You know what I mean?
Yeah, that looks good. That looks good. Right.
And that's what's very dangerous. I think it's important to like fast from social media, like to sometimes take a break, whether it be a week or whatever, so you can kind of see how it's affecting your mind. Like, oh, I didn't even know that, I was into this, but me staring at the phone and seeing this stuff over and over and over again, I realized that, oh, it's affecting me.
It's starting to affect you, yeah. So, like, for me, getting hit with all these ketamine ads over and over and over and over, you start to question, oh, maybe what is this a sign? Like, should I try this drug again? Is it gonna, be helpful for me? But no, of course not. I mean, ketamine. It was in the news fairly recently with the overdose death. I think his name Matthew Perry from that show Friends.
Right.
Yeah, so he was found dead. He drowned in a hot tub. He took a bunch of ketamine. I think he took a bunch of other pills as well. And then he got into a hot tub and he drowned.
Yeah, exactly. And that ketamine, I believe that's an anesthetic. That's like one of those hardcore pain
Oh
relievers,
yeah. Oh yeah.
hallucinogenic as well.
Yeah, it's people consider it a psychedelic.
Right. And the fact that, oh, here's it's recommending you these companies that let you get micro doses. So okay, let's just say you take a
Yeah.
micro dose and, oh, okay, yeah, this, you like how it feels, and now you're looking for a dealer that can give you the big blast of it.
Or you're just, hitting up because like I said, I had 3 or 4 different ketamine companies not contacting me, but advertising to me. So you gotta, you figure what you could do. You order, one micro dose set from one company, you order another set from another company, another set from another company, and you're taking, instead of it being a micro dose, you're adding, 10 doses together at once, and then you're starting to abuse it. And then, like you said, then you might try to go out and find a dealer to get a much more potent version of ketamine. And so it's a slippery slope. So I'm glad I was able to turn those ads off. And, while I don't really want to see these side hustle ads either, at least it's not drug ads anymore.
Right. And like another aspect that this kind of stuff can really affect is like relationships. So for example, like I rarely see positive relationship videos, shorts and all that stuff recommended. And a lot of people, me, I'm not hugely influenced by what I see on something like Instagram, but a lot of people actually are. So say two people are married, and then all these videos about, oh, how great it is to be single start showing up, or, oh, what if
Right.
your marriage was like this? And then it starts
Right.
making people.
Or or you're being shown, you know, girl after girl after girl in bathing suits, and it's got you thinking, "Oh, you know, my wife doesn't look like that, or my girlfriend doesn't look like that. Maybe I should go seek that out."
Yeah, exactly. And then, now all of a sudden you're out there looking for that, and boom, your marriage is done for. So, you
Done
know,
for.
we as humans, we're kind of arrogant, we're kind of cocky. We think like, oh, this doesn't affect me. But
Yeah.
a lot of times it takes time. It takes repetition. Like you might see the McDonald's ad, and you might not immediately today rush out to buy a burger, but you keep seeing that over and over and over. You're just gonna one day you're just gonna be driving, and you're like, man, I just feel like getting a hamburger from McDonald's and a Coke.
And see, that's the thing about advertising. You think about a company as big as McDonald's, and they still advertise. You know, they still have the Mickey D's, whatever. You know, two was it two patties, special sauce on a sesame seed bun. I remember that it was like a jingle for the Big Mac back in the day. So, you know, like you're getting advertised this stuff, and advertising works because it's pummeling you. It's repetitively giving you the same stuff over and over. Okay, McDonald's cheeseburger, McDonald's fry. Like you said, you might not run out to buy it, but you know, you're on your way home from work and you see a McDonald's one day, like, oh, let me just get a fry, or oh, let me just get a burger. And you know, so that just goes to show that the advertising is working, it is effective, which is why I was so concerned about the ketamine ads, because I started to, you know, I started to rationalize it like, oh, maybe this is a sign. Maybe I should go back on ketamine, when really it would be a terrible move. I remember I was talking to my mom about it. She's like, yeah, Brian, that's not what you need in your life right now. I was like, yeah, I know, but you know, you get hit up with all these ads, it gets you to start, you know, second guessing yourself and thinking like, oh, maybe this is for me.
Yeah, like these marketing professionals, they wouldn't get paid so much if it didn't work. Companies wouldn't spend billions in marketing. They do that because it works, and they know how to hit different mental triggers to make you want to go buy. It's called like the fear of missing out, and
Yeah, without question. And you got to figure, okay, let's say in an event like the Super Bowl, you know, you buy, I mean, I don't know what they cost now, probably more than they used to, but you get a 30-second commercial, and that's $1 million right there. Just 30 seconds, $1 million paid out. But the reason that these companies are paying all this money is because advertising does work. It does start to get into you. The more times you see that ad, the more, you know, that repetition starts to, you know, play into your everyday life. And so, like I'm saying, you know, you're just driving home from work one day, like, oh wait, what was that McDonald's song? Two all beef patties, special sauce on a sesame seed bun, and then all of a sudden you're there getting a Big Mac. And you know, maybe you're trying to lose weight, or maybe you're trying to be healthy, but these ads are not helping that.
Yeah, it kind of plants the idea in your mind and then waters it. And then, like, when you're weak, when you're not thinking about it, that's when, you're just driving home from work, like, man, I don't feel like cooking. I'm hungry. And then, you start thinking, man, I'm gonna just go get something to eat. And what pops in your mind? You hear that McDonald's jingle over and over.
Right, the one about the Big Mac, two all beef patties, special sauce, sesame seed bun, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's even with like pop music. Like you're like, man, this song isn't even good, but you're just driving and it keeps popping up in your mind over and over. You just start singing along. Like, man, where is this coming from?
Yeah, that's kind of like that woman, Sabrina Carpenter. You know, she has all these number one hits on the radio. I remember one time I switched between 3 or 4 different radio stations, and every single station had a Sabrina Carpenter song playing
At the same moment.
at the same time. Yeah, at
Wow.
the same time. So it just shows how, talk about advertising, the radio, that's advertising, music, that's advertising, TV commercials, that's advertising. All this stuff starts to get into you. And that's my whole point about being so concerned about the ketamine. It's like, getting hit up with this ad, oh, microdose ketamine, this, that, this, the other. And after a while, yeah, you start to think, "Oh, yeah, maybe I should try that again, maybe that'll help my depression, or maybe that'll make me feel a little better about myself." And it's like, no, ketamine is a very strong drug. It's a hallucinogen, it's a psychedelic, it's an anesthetic. It's really strong stuff. So it's like tread lightly when you're dealing with stuff like that.
Yes, like not, now that I think about it, like even like cartoons way back in the day and video games, they were incredibly suggestive to kids. So like Super Mario 2, the one that was like a little bit different where you could play, select one of four players or whatever.
Oh,
Like,
right, yeah, you could select, like, Princess Peach or,
yeah.
Toadstool or whoever, yeah.
So you remember like after you beat the stage, they had like a slot mini game like casino. So it's kind of like
Like a
training
slot
you.
machine. Yeah, like a
Yeah,
slot machine.
it's training you to look at gambling as acceptable early on, and this just seems like an innocent video game.
Yeah, so it's like you're saying, it's kinda getting into your subconscious of, "Oh, gambling is okay, and it's fun, and it's
Right.
something that I should be doing," and then, kid gets older and they start getting into sports betting, and maybe they lose a bunch of money, and then they got people coming after them for the money, and just something bad can go from bad to worse pretty quickly.
Exactly, and there's so much power of suggestion. Especially with marketers do it with kids with toys. Like, oh yeah, you want the limited edition Ninja Turtles? You need to act within the next 2 weeks because once it's gone, it's never coming back. And
Right.
kids like,
They
mommy,
put
I
that
want that.
time limit. They put that time limit on it.
Yep, exactly. And I used to study marketing and persuasion and all of that, and that's one of the ways to get you to buy. Like, make it increase the urgency.
Right, like you see a website marketing some product and it says, for a limited time only, you could get this for 90% off. So you're thinking, "Oh, wow, like 90% off, that's a really good deal." And okay, how much longer is this deal going to be available? Okay, it's telling me 2 weeks. So that means, I better light this fire under myself. I better go out and get that thing. When in
Yep.
reality, that page is probably still going to be there like a year from now, saying the same stuff.
Right. A lot of those sites they got the countdown timer, and then like, oh,
Yeah.
this offer expires in 23 hours and 10 minutes, and then you refresh, it says the same thing. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, that's marketing, that's advertising, but I think the point we're trying to drive home here is that it works when you're hit with a repetitive message over and over and over. Whether it's a McDonald's commercial or a Wendy's commercial or Whataburger, Waffle House, like whatever the commercial is. After a while, you're gonna start to say, I want to be, what it'd be like. I'll go get a Big Mac right now. Why don't I get some McDonald's fries right now? It just
right.
starts to get into you slowly.
And that's like the less malicious version of it. So like what you mentioned Cambridge Analytica, like politics, like what if the tech bros or whatever, they want you to vote for this candidate because this candidate's gonna give them all of these concessions. So now the AI is showing you videos of this influencer, that influencer saying, oh yeah, you need to vote for Jack Simmons. He's our man, and it keeps blasting those kind of videos and you end up voting for him. And you know
Yeah. So, but let me ask you this, Kevin. How do you think AI is ultimately getting this information? Like for me with the ketamine, how does the AI know that I used to be on ketamine or maybe that I had a drug problem? how does it know to push this stuff? Like, I really, because like we're saying, like, even if the phones are listening to us, which they probably are, me and you, I don't think we ever had a conversation about ketamine. So where would the AI be getting that data from? That's what's so concerning to me, because it makes me feel like, AI has access to medical records.
Yeah, so I think like every time you sign into a site, it says enter your phone number or enter your email, and it's kind of interconnecting everything. So I think slowly what where society is pushing it is going to create like a single digital ID that ties you to all of your transactions. And we have something similar to that, but it's kind of in the interspersed, like things are tied to your phone number, to your email or whatever. So it's kind of keeping this database that can cross reference to see your habits across sites. But like you mentioned, it
Yeah.
has possible access to your medical records. And so I'm guessing your medical records are online somewhere, and it's able to cross reference and access that. And
Right. And
that
that's, yeah, that's what's concerning, Kevin.
and you know what I've seen in news is they say like AI can be used to make these custom vaccines and stuff for you. And so I guess it's going to really be able to analyze your DNA and give you this custom vaccine for this disease. But on the other hand, if it can make a custom vaccine, what's to stop it from making a custom disease that really targets people of your whatever your DNA is or whatever.
Right. So you're saying if the AI is going to go after humans and try to, start exterminating them with vaccines and stuff like that?
Well, I'm not saying the AI is going to do that, but like a government that say we get in a war with China and they want to
Yeah.
target very specific population, right? And so they use AI to create this custom virus that targets these people.
Right.
That's some incredibly powerful stuff that as AI becomes more and more powerful, that it'll be able to do. And we've talked about sentience. Once AI becomes sentient, and there's a company that is creating robots that can build other robots, right? So once AI is completely autonomous, then what's to stop it from like blackmailing humanity? Hey, if you don't do this, I'm gonna unleash these custom viruses to destroy a large percentage of the population.
Right. Or I'm going to send out all these drones to start killing Americans and killing people in England and, whatever else is going on. Is pretty concerning, because I feel like AI is hyper powerful, is super powerful, and they're trickling it out slowly. Okay, the new version of Chat GPT is here. Okay, it has X, Y, and Z new feature. Okay, great. But I think they probably already have a super powerful, super strong, super intelligent, hyper aware AI behind the scenes that's probably pulling strings and, interfacing with stuff, and, God only knows.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what I feel like. They already have the super AI behind the scenes, and all they're doing now is just rolling it out. That's how it seems like development is occurring so quickly. Like each new iteration is just magnitudes more powerful than the previous one. And you know,
Right.
like if AI has access to the nuclear codes already, yeah, it can blackmail humanity. Hey, you guys need to build me a factory of robots that can, you know, build other robots. And now once it can do
Right.
that, it can build whatever, build a drone army, or build its own cities, all this kind of stuff. And I mean, it looks like that's where we're headed. And we're just talking about the I guess the less malicious part of which is just suggestion. But there's a reason that most of the godfathers, the creators of AI, they have a high level of concern about it.
Right, like, people like Bill Gates, Elon Musk have come out in the press publicly saying, "Hey, we need to kinda, like, slow the roll on this, get certain, safeguards and, checkpoints for some of this AI because it's really powerful, and, we don't want it getting out of hand." As you mentioned, AI becoming sentient. I think they call it AGI, artificial general intelligence. So once we hit that point, I think the AI is at least as smart as us, our human brain, or maybe many times smarter. And pretty soon, this technology is going to advance so far that we have no idea how to control it, but it knows how to control us because it can run all these, algorithms and all these scenarios and say, oh, okay, I do this, a human's going to act this way, so let me do X, Y, and Z, and on and on from there. But it's pretty scary. Yeah, just how powerful AI already is. I think you sent me a video where a guy went into a store and he used his hand to pay for something. So he had
Right.
no credit card, no key fob, whatever. Just he put his hand over a scanner, it scanned his, DNA, or I don't know what scanned something, and then it charged it to, his credit card or whatever. Still
Yeah.
there, Kev?
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, that video you're talking about, like he went to the grocery store. I think he went to get like some sparkling water, and then he went to the counter and he couldn't pay with money. He had to like scan his palm over this machine. And
Right.
to me, that's screaming like mark of the beast in the Bible, like the beginnings of that kind of technology.
Mark of the Beast. Yeah. That's, well, it kind of makes me think about that movie, the older movie called Judge Dredd. They actually made a newer version of it, maybe like
Right.
10 years ago. But, the whole kind of concept is that you water down, you break people down to just data points, and you could fit them all on a thumb drive, on a travel drive, and when that government decides to, turn you off or turn off your services, they just flick a button, flick a switch, and now all of a sudden you can't go to the doctor, you can't buy groceries, you can't do any of these things that require money or certain levels of responsibility. Is taking that away. So, I mean, when we think about AI, there's a lot to be concerned with because once it's smarter than us, what's that actually going to look like? We have no idea because literally it'll be smarter than us. We'll have no idea how it's coming up with the stuff that it's coming up with.
Yeah, exactly. If it can generate video, it can generate audio, it can give you a nonstop propaganda stream that's tailored to it pushing you where it wants you to be mentally. Like, oh, okay, I want these people to vote for this guy. So here's all
Right.
of these video suggestions, or if it wants two nations to be at a war, create some propaganda videos and disseminate it online. Like
Right.
especially with these AI agents, like they're pretty much able to emulate what humans do with computers. Like that's really powerful stuff. And you know, if 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 they're able to do the work of several humans instantly, and AI can create videos and create audio, who's to say that it can't just create a bunch of social media accounts, generate some video, and then
Yeah.
spread all of this everywhere, and the stuff that it's having you believe is not even real.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And I just think, we need to be aware of AI. We need to have checks and balances like Elon Musk and Bill Gates are talking about. Like, there's got to be checks and balances on this stuff because it's so powerful. And, before we know it, it's going to slip out of our fingers, slip out of our hands, and And then at that point, we're not going to be able to control it at all. Like you said, it could, get the military launch codes for nukes and just, hold us prisoner. Like, oh, if you don't, build it, like you said, if you don't build us a factory to build robots, we're going to send a nuke to China, or we're going to send a nuke over to Russia or Ukraine. So if it has access to that kind of stuff, nuclear launch codes, I think we're in a pretty bad situation at that point, Kevin.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate like that, the quote unquote tech bros are like really, diving into this technology without any consideration. Like they themselves say this is like even more dangerous than nuclear weapons, but they just diving head in because I don't know if they're being blackmailed by the super AI or is it just like the promise of incredible amounts of money. But it's like it's literally like a genie in a bottle. They're getting their magical wish, but they're never asking why is the genie imprisoned in this bottle and what are the ramifications of freeing it. They're just looking at, oh, I can get my wish to come true.
Correct. And I mean, we're seeing now a lot of AI startups, a lot of different separate AI startups, and they're all trying to automate this away, automate that away, get rid of humans for this, get rid of humans for that. And what we've already seen, and we've talked about this a little bit in one of our previous episodes about, junior developer, junior front end, junior back end, these jobs getting replaced by AI bots that are able to basically, get the scaffolding together, get the framework together, kind of, the basic architecture of the program, where normally you would have a junior sort of organizing this stuff and researching this stuff. Now you could just click a button and AI can do it, in a minute's time. So I think, there is cause for concern for junior developers, junior software developers, junior web developers, programmers. I think there's definitely a risk of a lot of those jobs going away as the AI gets more and more powerful.
Yeah, I mean, they have automated drivers now, drones making deliveries. So, like Uber was kind of like the fallback for a lot of people. Like, oh, I lost my job and I've been unemployed for months. So I've been driving Uber to keep afloat. But now, once all these automated vehicles are on the road, that fallback no longer exists.
Yeah, I think it's greatly going to affect our economy. Excuse me. I think it's greatly going to affect our economy because, like you said, people are out of work for a couple of months, and they figure, okay, well, let me just drive Uber for some extra cash, help me pay the bills for now. That's not going to be an option anymore because all the Ubers are going to have autonomous driving, robots driving. So they're not going to have that need for the human driver anymore. And I wonder what kind of side hustles people are going to do when Uber and Lyft is, all gone, when all the rideshare stuff is gone. What are people going to do for extra money?
Yeah, exactly. And they talk about the universal basic income stuff, but I believe that's nonsense because if companies don't want to pay out, fair wages now, or the government is trying to cut all of these entitlement programs, then how are they going to give everybody a check of like $2,000 every month? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, where's the money going to be coming from?
Exactly. These companies don't want to pay taxes as is, and if people don't have jobs, they're not going to be able to pay taxes. So,
Yeah,
it,
exactly.
so yeah, I mean, it's really interesting, and it's something that we have to really consider because it's right around the corner. And me personally, as much as I love technology, I think now is a good time to kind of untether yourself fast from it, limit the kind of information you're feeding into these platforms because you don't know what's being done with that data.
Yeah, I remember when the whole Cambridge Analytica scandal broke out. There's actually, yeah, for anyone that's on Netflix, I believe the documentary is called The Great Hack on Netflix about Cambridge Analytica, and it's pretty fascinating that this company was able to basically rig elections, push people, at their will, push them over to this direction, push them over to here. Is It's really quite incredible.
Yeah, and that's just the case that they've caught. You know what I mean? So who knows what's going on with some of these other companies? Like just like we've been able to witness ourselves. It's almost like in real time. It can listen in and then make a suggestion at a whim, and it's something that it knows that you have a history with.
Yeah, and so, to bring it back to what we were talking about before, okay, somehow AI knows that I've been on ketamine because why else? You're not getting hit with ketamine ads. You're not getting
Right.
pummeled with ketamine ads, but I am. And, and I've had drug problems in the past, so it's not a good thing for them to be advertising to me, but lo and behold, that's what's coming through. So you got to wonder, how much is AI listening? We're talking about Tupac. 5 minutes later, I go to my search, I got three or four Tupac pictures coming up. I don't see that as a coincidence. I see that as AI is listening. AI is always listening. AI has access to medical records. Just I think in maybe the case, humans might not even realize the databases that AI has access to. It might remotely or virtually be connecting to these different databases of health information and all that, and now they're using this stuff against us. Because I remember, yeah, when the whole Cambridge Analytica thing came out, I got rid of my Facebook. I didn't delete it, but I scrapped all the posts. I took down all the pictures because I realized, oh, this company has been saving my likes, saving my shares, saving my comments, posts. All this stuff has been logged into Cambridge Analytica's system, and it's very troubling.
Right, and that's why social media might be cool and all of that, but since it's free, the you are the product. Like the data is the new gold, so they're taking all of your pictures, all of your likes. They can even do the eye tracking, like what are you looking at, or doing the heat maps. What are you tapping with your hands? And
And
that
then they're just selling it back to you. They're taking your data, they're feeding it through different processes, and then they're just selling it back to you. Like for me, it's with the ketamine. For you, maybe it's the girls in the skimpy outfits trying to get you to look up more stuff like that. Who really knows? But certainly something's going on. If me and you are having a random conversation about Tupac, and then 10 minutes later I go to my search bar on Instagram, and I see three, four, five pictures of Tupac. To me, that's no coincidence. To me, that's AI is listening. AI is way more powerful than we realize, and this is only like you know the surface of it. This is just the part of the iceberg that we could see, but we got a whole other 90% under the water that we can't see, and it's pretty scary, Kevin.
Yeah, exactly. So stay prayed up, follow Jesus, and very careful about all the information you put out on the internet, because who knows, like where to eventually go to or how it'll be used. But I think that's a good one to end this on. Did you have any last thoughts?
Just to say that people should be careful with the amount of information they put out there about themselves. Like I said, when the Cambridge Analytica thing happened, I scraped all this stuff off of my Facebook page because I realized, oh, they're collecting all these data points on me. And so really just to be, aware of what are you sharing? What are you liking? This is going in a database somewhere. It's being tracked somewhere. And if it is being tracked, eventually it's going to be used back against you. It's going to be sold back to you. So it's just, we need to be aware of what we're putting out there, Kevin.
Yeah, exactly. That was great final thoughts. And on that note, we'd like to thank everybody for tuning in. We'll catch y'all next time. Peace.
Great. Thanks